The first item on this evening's agenda is apology for absence. Apologies for absence so far have been received from Councillors Rita Amos, Cropper, Minto, Rayner, Alan Vincent, Armstrong, McKay, Smith and O'Neill. Are there any further apologies? I've done Swales at the beginning. No? Yes, I thought she was the second one. Right, moving on. The next item is item 2, confirmation of minutes. Please can I have a proposal for the minutes of the council meeting held on the 16th of September 21 to be approved as a correct record?
Move those minutes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Beavers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to change the minutes to confirm that I actually did attend the last council meeting and I'm not there.
Not there?
No, you've not put my name down.
We'll have that amended, thank you. And you definitely was there. Move on. So is there a seconder for those?
I'll second that one, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hale. Does anyone want to comment on the factual accuracy of the minutes or the there's the proposed amendment, which is Lorraine's? No? Would those... All those in favour? Thank you. The minutes are now confirmed from the 16th of September. The next item is item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members or officers have an interest to declare on any items included on the agenda? No? Move on to item 4, announcements. The leader, I believe you wish to make an announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got a presentation to do to you, but first of all, I'd like to go into a little bit of preamble so that all the members realise just exactly what it is that I'm going to present you with. It's carbon literacy in Wyre, and in order to respond effectively to the climate emergency, Wyre Council have begun the process of training staff in carbon literacy. It's a one-day course designed to raise awareness of the science of climate change, as well as the carbon costs and impacts of everyday activities. Participants learn about potential solutions and actions we can take in response to the climate crisis, both individually and within the workplace. As a result of the training, learners commit to taking 2 significant actions to reduce emissions in their roles and areas of influence within the council. Following successful assessment, learners are then awarded a certificate to confirm they have met the requirements of the carbon literacy programme. In recognition of our progress, we have been accredited as a bronze level carbon literate organisation. Wyre are the first local authority in Lancashire to achieve this status, which demonstrates our commitment to learning and taking action on climate change. We now hope to build on this achievement by training more staff in carbon literacy and striving towards meeting the requirements of silver accreditation in the near future. Bronze is the entry level and we are now moving towards that silver level. So I should like to present you, Madam Mayor, and I've defumed it and stuff.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. So announcement this evening. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting to turn it on. Recently I went to a primary school dressed as the witch to do Halloween stories to the children, and they put pennies in my bucket. So we had a really exciting time and I put it on Facebook. And Councillor Walmsley and Councillor Fairbanks said, if you dare to go in the chamber with that on, I will give you some money. So for David Walmsley and I am here to collect the money. All right. Mr Payne's got an envelope as well.
There's an envelope
to go
coming
round. So that is the reason why I'm here. I did ask permission for this because I didn't want anybody to take it in bad taste. So I did send Gary an email and say, would it be permitted for me to come in fancy dress? So the forthcoming events that I have...
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, the first person I've asked is before anybody no, not.
You can give me an IOU.
That was Gary.
You did.
I think just to correct the leader there, Madam Mayor, I think you'll just find a put 20 pounds on it.
So forthcoming events are the 16th of November, we're having a psychic night at Brick House in Hambleton with the top 5 psychics, mediums from Blackpool. So should anybody wish to come, tickets are available from Joanne. So you get your own personal reading. It's not usually the madhouse that I do, but we do have fun. On the 17th of November, it's a charity quiz night with lots of games at the tramway in Thornton Cleveland. So I do hope that some of you will come and have a go and see if you can get the trophy. 28th of November is Thornton Brass Band. And the 1st of December is the most important night of all, the Mayor's Ball, and I do hope you turn up, because I will be very, very upset if you don't, and I'm sure I can come as something else, like the Axeman next time, and chop off your heads if you don't turn up. So, you putting your hand up? No. All right.
First name.
So, we'll go on to the business now. Item 5, public questions or statements. However, I believe there are none from the public or anybody this evening, so we'll move on to item 6. Questions on notice from councillors. There is one question on notice, which is in your agenda papers. Councillor Fail, as your question is written in full in the agenda, can we take it as read? Thank you. Councillor Michael Vincent, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say I'm struggling with why this has come to me. It relates to grave supply rather than to anything to do with the resources, so let's hope the follow-up question actually speaks to my portfolio. The latest projections for the capacity of Wyre cemeteries is 14.2 years for all cemeteries including ashes and 15.2 years for all cemeteries burial only. They're the last time they were updated, which was the start of the municipal year. As a council, we have no statutory obligation to provide grave space, and the financial position we find ourselves in means it is highly unlikely that we will consider spending resources on opening any new cemeteries either now or in the near future.
Councillor Fail, you now have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question, which must arise directly out of your original question or Councillor Vincent's reply.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The report we saw 2.5 years ago suggested that Poulton had 27.2 years and Preesall 16.7. So the issue there was that Fleetwood obviously only had 10.4. So at the time, you'd have thought that 2.5 years later we were now down to an 8-year supply. So that's what I'm after really. What is the capacity figure now at Fleetwood and the others, to be honest? But okay, overall it's 14.2 years. But for Fleetwood, we're saying it's less than 10 years probably, and therefore we've got a 10-year supply to provide. Okay, the council's probably going to say that you can use Preesall or you can use Poulton, and that might sound fine to some people. But I think that the council has a duty to actually consult with residents and find out whether they're okay with that plan, because they might not want their relatives buried in Poulton or Preesall. So it's just about whether we've got this covered off. Have we got a 10-year supply covered off for the whole of the borough, and in particular, obviously, for Fleetwood and Thornton Cleveland, then without having to necessarily go to Preesall or Poulton. Thank you.
Councillor Vincent, would you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the answer was no, there's absolutely nothing to do with finance in the supplementary question, but I'll answer it anyway. I deliberately kept these figures back because you might have asked me to explain them, and I can't. You're better off asking the officers. It's not my portfolio. Fleetwood's 10-year grave supply is now 10.6 years. So don't that's the figures that we've been provided with. Poulton is 22, Preesall is 12. If you want to send an email to Councillor Bowen, I'm sure she'll get you an explanation for that. Poulton has gone up dramatically as well, so I just get that I have the figures. I've not had any more information. With regards to the 10-year grave supply, that's always the barometer that we have used. It doesn't include graveyards, and crucially for members, it doesn't include Carlton Crematorium, where a lot of people are buried or cremated, because that's in Blackpool. It's not in our figures. No graveyards. And also, I understand from Councillor Ibbotson that most people from sort of Garstang would use either Lancaster or Preston, rather than any within Wyre anyway. So I'm satisfied that the grave supply is pretty good, particularly when there are boroughs within Lancashire that don't provide any at all.
Item 7, the executive reports. First, the report is of the Leader of the Council. Councillor Henderson, would you like to introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report's before members. Very, very little to add. The Lancashire district leaders, I've mentioned this at the last meeting, and Lancashire leaders. Fortunately, I didn't have to go. I don't mean that as disrespectful, but I meant that because I managed to get away on holiday for once, which was difficult, but it was nice. But then it was difficult getting back as well. I don't think they wanted me back in the country, but that's the way it goes. Councillor Michael Vincent, he attended on my behalf at this meeting because it was a very important meeting. It was regarding moving along on the county deal. At the moment, the governance of a county deal is still to be agreed on. The meeting, as Michael's reported to me, was around the county deal. Very little else was discussed at that meeting. COVID, of course, was discussed at that meeting, but it was the county deal that was the pusher. But there are a couple of other authorities who are still questioning the governance arrangements. At the moment, I am happy with the governance arrangements that are proposed, and when and if they are agreed at district and Lancashire leaders level, I will bring that back, as I have said before, to the full council. Other than that, Madam Mayor, I have nothing else to add to this report. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments for the Leader? Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is more of a general issue around protection of Wyre's heritage and its community assets, but being part of the Protect the Bernays pub group, I'll declare a non-pecuniary interest. In recent years, we've seen the demise of the Orion in Cleveland, the Illawalla in Thornton, Fleetwood Pier, the Wirelight, the Victoria pub in Fleetwood. It was the town's oldest pub at the time. And we now have another pub that is over 100 years old under threat of demolition. Would the Leader agree with me that the council should be doing far more to protect its heritage and community assets? And also, for future reference by all councillors, can I please ask which cabinet member has specific responsibility for heritage matters? I asked that because last time I didn't get an answer regarding that. And finally, can I ask what action, if any, the council is taking to protect the Bernays Hotel from the needless demolition? Thank you.
Sorry. It's okay. Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to split this answer into two parts, because I did actually give this quite a bit of thought after you had mentioned it at the previous meeting as well. I'm not going to go into the Bernays pub. I used to go into the Bernays pub years ago, but I'm not going in now because there's more vandalism goes on around that Bernays pub than anything else. The Bernays, the pub itself, and what the public want to do with it is, realistically, it should have been sorted out from a public's point of view a long time ago. The Bernays, if you were to look at it as a building as such, It is late Victorian, early Edwardian. It is built in the very typical style of the old Catterall and Swarbrick pubs from Talbot Road Brewery. In those years, you'll find a lot of these buildings used to be around Blackpool and on the outskirts of Blackpool and Fylde, and most of them have gone by the by. That's a fact of life, and there's not a lot that you can do about it when people do not go and use a facility. It ends up how it ends up, but I'm not going to say much more about the Bernays in itself. I'll leave that up to yourselves and your group but just for the rest of the members, it had gone to appeal. The owner of the pub was allowed to appeal against what was proposed for it. He does, or that company does own the pub. It's entirely up to them what they try to do. It's not a planning matter, and that must be understood. At that stage, it is not a planning matter. It only becomes a planning matter when everything else is sorted out beforehand, and therefore the planning application comes in either to knock down the building or to knock down the building and build something else. That, Rob, is literally as far as I can go on the Bernays itself, because it's not something that realistically I should now be getting involved in, because I'm sure that it will become part of a planning application in the future. The second part was when you did ask about, is there anybody with responsibility? And I gave that, and I thought to myself, well, I could take that on myself, really. But then I started to work it out and think that we have got a conservation officer. We used to have a part-timer. He's now full-time. I know the conservation officer is working with Fleetwood Town Council to look at buildings within Fleetwood with heritage, to look at the Canby heritage status, to look at if they can be put on a local list, not a national list. It's not up to a council to put buildings on a national list. That's grade 1 and grade 2. But they can be put on a local list. And I know
Councillor Henderson, your time is up now, thank you.
2 more minutes, Madam Mayor, just to finish off on this. It's fair to Councillor Fail then. So, therefore, Ian is working with Fleetwood Town Council. He's then going to move further on out, and he is going to put together a register of buildings. And I will then look at putting it over to a portfolio holder to have overall responsibility for it. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your indulgence.
Councillor Longton, you may speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the last week, deaths from COVID in Wyre increased by 3, from 394 to 397 deaths. One of those deaths was my friend's father. So 397 COVID deaths in the district of Wyre is more deaths than in some entire countries. Current COVID infection rates in Wyre at 691 per 100,000 are amongst the highest in Europe. So as well as managing for COVID recovery, what are Lancashire leaders doing to effectively manage this pandemic and COVID infection rates in the area? Thank you.
As I said at the beginning, that was partially discussed on Lancashire Leaders at the Lancashire Leaders meeting, of which I've yet to receive the minutes to find out exactly where we're up to from a Lancashire Leaders point of view. However, from a local point of view, a question along those lines should actually be put to Councillor Bowen under her portfolio of health, if you wanted to look at it at a local Wyre level. But from a Lancashire perspective, when I get the minutes of the previous meeting and I speak with the chairman of the Lancashire Leaders and the chairman of the district leaders, I'll get a better understanding of where we're at the moment with it, and I will more than likely give you a written answer to that one.
That concludes the consideration of the Leaders' Report. We will now move on to the report of the Resources Portfolio Holder, which is item B. Councillor Michael Vincent, would you like to introduce your report, please?
Well, the Madam Mayor, sorry, I just can't find it at the minute. There we go. Yep, the report is before members. Don't really have anything to add to it. It's rather brief.
Are there any questions or comments for Councillor Vincent? Councillor Sturzaker, please.
Councillor Vincent, I recently emailed you on behalf of the Festive Lights Committee as our switch on event is on the 27th of November. We invited you and your family to join us on the Festive Lights tram, which this year, in honour of Doreen Lofthouse, is the Fisherman's Friend tram. I've had no response. As it is a smaller tram than usual, we really need to get our numbers right. Please, could you respond?
Councillor Vincent, would you like to respond?
Yes, apologies for not responding. My understanding from the email was it's during the working day. I can't commit to something that far ahead at this time, but I'll have a look at it and see if there's anything that I can do. It'll be in bed at that time.
It's a new dad. Well, it's not a new dad. It's a new dad setting time. I'm tired.
It's on at 4:45, so it's not late night.
That concludes the consideration of the Resources Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to the report, item C, Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces Portfolio Holder.
Thank you,
Councillor Bridge, would you like to introduce your report?
Well, it's there before you. It's fairly straightforward.
Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Peter Lamerino, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Skipple Car Park is an antisocial behaviour order problem at the moment, or has been for some time. It's a stone's throw out of my ward, but I pass it daily with the dog, with Molly, and a week ago the head ranger was there with a large group of volunteers, which was really good. They've cleared out all the undergrowth and the trees that have been passed by Owl. What's his name? Ryan Owl, thank you. And so they've been all cleared away now. So it's all clear. It looks fantastic, and hopefully it will have some help with the ASB problem. So please, could you pass on my thanks to the volunteers, because they do a fantastic job. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Not only do we have a great staff here at Wyre, but we are blessed with having great neighbours, and that's what it is about being neighbourly and volunteering, and from the beach clean-ups to things like that. We're all invested in our great community, so thank you.
Councillor Moon.
Talk about great neighbours. I reported some fly tipping, not last Sunday, the Sunday before, anonymously, and it was in my neighbour here's patch. He didn't know about it, but it's irrelevant. But I just wanted to say, can you pass the congratulations on to the staff? I reported it on a Sunday afternoon, completely anonymously, and a day or two later, I think it was a Monday, but maybe the Tuesday morning, it was all gone. It was a lay-by just near Barton Grange.
I reported it as well.
Did you? Well, I did it first. I bet I did. But, you know, they cleaned it up, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
so,
it was done
cracking.
Yeah, thank you. I'm always amazed, to be honest, how quickly the hit squads go down and clean up. I've yet to have a complaint. Somebody said I've put in a request to get somewhere cleaned up, and it's always done straight away. They are fantastic. But we've been able to do that since we brought it back in house, which does help.
Councillor Sturzaker.
A bit begrudged to do this now, because I'm going to thank you again. It's the Green Flag Awards again. Well done to the teams. Thank you. Especially Memorial Park and Mount Walk.
I mean, thank you. Our parks are fantastic, and we're so blessed to have the Memorial Park. You know, it's a lovely space, great green space. We use it so well. We use it for so many things. It can only add to our community, and it looks lovely as well. I'm regularly there, actually, so I know how good it is.
Councillor Beavers, I didn't forget you, but you are in line with the hands that were spotted straight away.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, well, obviously. Council Bridge, can I thank and congratulate the staff at Wyre Council, I don't know, for the fantastic work they did cleaning up the alley between Manor Road and Arden Green on the Shakespeare Road estate. The amount of fly tipping and rubbish had reached such proportions that the residents had no chance of clearing this mountain. without our help. Mark Billington and our wonderful street cleaning team did an absolutely fantastic job, so much so that some of the local residents contacted me to ask that I thank our staff personally for the fantastic job they'd done. I would like this recorded in the minutes so our staff are aware that they are greatly appreciated, not just by the officers and the councillors, but also by the residents that they serve so well. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you for that. The number of people that actually come up to me so when I'm wandering around Polton or whatever else to say what a fantastic job that our officers do, they just go over and above. Mark Billington, well, I have to say, this is my first cabinet job, but I couldn't have asked for a better officer. And I've seen the pictures of the alleyways, the before and after, and they look great. Thank you.
Councillor Longton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got the bad cop question. I've received several complaints in recent weeks from residents concerned or annoyed by the council's failure to collect their bins at the appropriate time. Some complaining their blue bin collection was rearranged 3 times. It seems the only communication to residents has been online in the expectation all affected residents will be able to check this. Given COVID infection rates in the borough are amongst the highest in Europe, and that the government's no-deal Brexit has led to an HGV driver crisis, what are Wyre actually going to do to prevent this from happening again and again? Simply passing the buck to their contractor isn't good enough. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but that's just a ridiculous statement. But, we've had COVID. We can't help it that we're not getting lorry drivers. They're not getting lorry drivers in Germany, in France, in Australia. It's happening all over the world. How you could possibly say that when they're working so hard that we're trying to train up people who aren't heavy goods drivers within the company to become that? How you could possibly say that we could possibly get more lorry drivers over and above anybody else seems to me staggering, and it seems as if you don't actually understand how the workplace must work when it comes to this. I'm insulted by it. I've seen how hard everybody's working. How hard... No. You might laugh. You want to come down to Cropper Road and talk to those people there, and the ones that they were the first ones to go down with COVID. They were the ones that were in the front line. So if you want to laugh about it, that's fine. But our refuse... well, I'm looking at the smirk on your face.
I'm laughing at your reaction.
So,
perhaps you want to speak to residents complaining about bin collection.
well, all right, let me explain that.
Can we just stop falling out in the chamber
Right,
and debating?
so,
Can you just give a quick, short answer,
Right,
please?
short answer is we collect bins when we're able to. We have yet to miss a grey bin collection, the ones that smell. The blue ones, it's become a bit more difficult. What would you prefer? We collect all the blue ones and let the smelly magazine ones go? I have nothing else to say. Yeah.
Thank you on that. We'll move on. Councillor Cletbirch, please.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'd like to go on record, please. Our thanks to Mark and his team, the groundsmen from Cottam Hall, and also the men who empty the bins round Cottam Hall. Frequently, there's been some fly tipping, and they automatically stop and pick it up, often without us even asking them. We'd had some problems with litter after football, before football, so that the volunteers couldn't begin the football games, and one of the team was in on a Saturday morning between 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock for a number of weeks, clearing the pitch so that then the football could start promptly. And I think they do an absolutely fantastic job. So I'd like it to be recorded, please, our thanks to Mark and his team. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, it goes back to what I was saying. They go over and above and beyond, way over, above and beyond. There's no jobs worse there. They see it needs doing. They have a pride in their work, and they do it. Thank you.
Councillor Lady Atkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to say, because I wasn't at the last council meeting, when we had that incredible heat wave, our blue bin wasn't emptied on the day. and I contacted people and they said, you know, they were down so much with staff, etc. So I thought, well, that was that. And they said it was fairly unlikely that they would be able to even get a team out on the Saturday, but, you know, put it out. Well, lo and behold, out on Saturday they were. So I'd like to say they're absolutely fantastic, and to pass and make sure it's in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll mention that some people in here appreciate them, and that we had managers out there working the vans. Supervising staff, people that didn't normally ride the vans, were out there doing it. They were committed. They were doing it. I've not got my licence.
And the last one, Councillor Sean Turner, waiting patiently. Thank you.
Yeah, back when the parade brought at the time of the Caldwell Climate Conference, and that out. There was a mention there of flight line
ultimately, it's education. That's the only way we're going to do this. Excuse me, is get people educated into what to recycle. But so we just do our best.
That concludes the consideration of the Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to the report, item D, Planning Policy and Economic Development Portfolio Holder. Councillor Collinson, would you please like to introduce your report? Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Paragraph 5 of your report suggests that the planning enforcement backlog identified in a presentation to overview and scrutiny in September is now slightly higher, 162 open cases rather than 160 open cases. On the face of it, and based on the report to overview and scrutiny, without additional resource, there is a 32-week backlog of cases. Can the portfolio holder please inform members what is the projected number of open cases at the end of the 3-month contract of this additional enforcement officer? And also, has the department now got a fully resourced plan showing that this backlog will be cleared in a reasonable time? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fail. I can't exactly give you any figures. I'm sure Marianne will be looking at those. We have taken on, obviously, as you know, a gentleman called Graham. And last time this occurred in planning, the council did exactly the same thing. He's there in 3 months post. If it's longer, then maybe it's needed. But I think a lot of this is because of the pandemic as well, because staff haven't been able to go out, enforcement staff haven't been able to go out to visit some of the sites because of the pandemic. But I will certainly get some figures for you from Marianne, Councillor Phil. Thank you.
Councillor Beavers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Collinson. On page 20, item 4, 4.1, your report on the Welcome Back Fund Action Plan sounds like good news to me, but, there's always a but, as an active member of the Fleetwood Festive Lights Committee for many years, I'm disappointed that the committee has not been approached by the team to offer us any kind of support, being that we are the largest town in Wyre and our Christmas lights and annual lantern parade get better every year. I do hope that this has been an oversight and that you will rectify this as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Beavers. I wasn't aware that Fleetwood had been overlooked. because there is the help there. The council is helping with the Christmas lights. Sadly, we're not having a Victorian evening in Garstang because of the pandemic, but there are other things going on in different areas. So hopefully, and we are. There is the fund there and the money's there, so I will find out why Fleetwood has not been included, Councillor Beavers. Thank you.
That concludes the consideration of the Planning, Policy and Economic Development Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to item E, Neighbourhood Services and Community Safety Portfolio Holder. Councillor Berry, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to mention that when I and officers appeared before the ONS in September on the question of domestic abuse, I did suggest that replacement abuse champions were appointed, and I'm very pleased to say that Councillor Webster and Councillor Sturziker have come forward. We usually just have 2 councillors, but if there is another councillor who feels that they would like to contribute or make some contribution to this valuable enterprise, then would they please contact me after this meeting. But I'd like to thank those 2 councillors for putting their names forward to assist. Thank you. And my report is before members, Madam Mayor. I'll take questions.
Are there any questions or comments for Councillor Berry? Councillor Lady Atkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering what the situation is as regards the Afghanistan refugees and how things are moving on in the borough. Thank you.
Yes. We carefully considered the situation, and we felt that the council could offer to support 5 Afghan families. The process has been slowed down because I'm told that various issues have got to be sorted out at more or less a county-wide level on the question of funding, and there have been some sort of issues as the information concerning families who were coming to the area. That information didn't seem to back up with what we thought was going to happen. So we've been told at the moment just to put things on a slight hold until those issues have been sorted out. In the meantime, I know that the public, members of the public have come forward and want to assist those people, and some have even offered to give them private education, etc., and this sort of thing. So it is encouraging that when this issue has been sorted out, that they will be welcomed. But it is not easy to find the requisite accommodation. One of the problems we are finding, I'll be quite honest about this, that landlords are selling up. It's a good market to sell, and it's getting more and more difficult to find that accommodation, and it's something that our team is looking at the moment, what we can do accommodation wise. Thank you.
Councillor Beavers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Berry, in your September report it stated that Furross Ward in Fleetwood has the highest levels of crime recorded in Wyre. In the last month, there has been 3 armed robberies and a rape in the main street in Fleetwood. The crime figures in the authorities' monitoring report states that criminal damage and arson are up by 32% and robbery up by 29% from 2019 to 2020. With all this in mind, and as well as the antisocial behaviour being on the rise in Fleetwood, Thornton, Cleveleys and across the borough, do you not now believe that it's time to start tackling these serious issues within Wyre? So my question is, surely you must agree with me that now is the time for Wyre Council to hold up its hands and admit that stopping the part funding of the Wyre PCSOs in 2013 was the wrong thing to do, and we must introduce the part funding of PCSOs in Wyre as soon as possible to help make our streets and parks and open spaces once again safe. Thank you.
I understand the issues that are facing. I acknowledge that the borough in general has gone through a difficult period. I think the main problem has been that we needed more officers to come into the area. They were not replaced, and I think that has now been realised by the Police and Crime Commissioner, who has visited the area on several occasions and realises the issues and problems that we face. We have a new inspector as well, who's very anxious to face up to the issues that are in the borough. He rang me this afternoon particularly to address the issues that arose in Poulton in the recent case that's been reported, to reassure residents that the police were doing everything they could by way of investigating what has happened, and also by way of going around reassuring residents that they would be safe and that there will be an increased police presence, certainly in Poulton for the time being, to deal with that reassurance issue for residents. But I'm sorry to say, but this borough did suffer an undermanning of staff over a period of time. They were transferred out of this area into East Lancs, and we've got to look to a previous Police and Crime Commissioner to answer that issue. It was he knew what was going on. I was telling him, but he did. In my opinion, that issue was not faced up, and he's now being faced up. But it does take time to get new people in and to train them up. We are working what we can to assist the police in their endeavours. We provide CCTV, we provide ASB groups that try and deal with individual causing ASB, but they have to be identified by the police. And one of the problems that we faced was the police were not able to identify those involved in ASB, so we couldn't deal with it. So that issue is before the police and will be attended to. But I'm very optimistic that given a new chief constable, given a new police and crime commissioner, and given a new inspector for Wyre, things will improve.
Can I just say you didn't answer the question?
Councillor Ann Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not trying to make this into a competition, but the engineering department, Councillor Berry, I think take a lot of beating. I reported an incident about a vandalised street sign, an avenue, not a road sign, at 9:45 one night, and by 9:30 the next morning, it was repaired. I went out to speak to the men, and they apologised because it was only a temporary repair. It was a very sturdy repair, but they said we've already radioed in to commission a new sign. So I think less than 12 hours is absolutely marvellous. So for recording other thanks, I think that's well worthy of comment.
Thank you for that, Councillor. I will pass it on to the engineering team, your good wishes and thanks for that.
Councillor Fairbanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, but Councillor Atkins she'd already asked the same question that I was going to ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor
George. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to mention the Disabled Facilities Grant again. I know I sound like a bit like a broken record because I mention it every time. There's 158 adaptations waiting to be completed. I'd just like to talk to you about one of them that's recently happened. A lady in my ward was unable to leave her house alone, and because of the Disabled Facilities Grant that she's received, the work's been done and everything, she's now able to leave the house. Unfortunately, due to the crime rate, she's terrified to, but, we will get there with that. But she did want me to pass on thanks that she can now get up and down the stairs. She's got a double rail on her stairs. Now, I know that sounds to everybody else, it might not sound important, but to somebody who can't get to the bathroom by themselves, that's actually a massive thing. And she really wanted her thanks passed on. She has a step outside, various things. So thank you to the team for doing that.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's amazing what some adaptations make to alter people's lives. I know There was somebody who I heard lived in a flat and they couldn't get downstairs and they needed a lift, and we were able to get it in fairly fast. So it does impact on people's lives, these grants, and it is a big connection with health as well. If we can keep people mobile, they can stay in their homes, they won't be going into care, they won't be going to hospitals, and they won't be having accidents. So, it's a big area that we're keen to press on with. And I appreciate your thanks, and the team do an excellent job. I think they do a fantastic job. Thank you.
Councillor Sean Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just thought the portfolio holder might be interested to know. I attended, and Councillor Berry was there as well last night, a Wyre area meeting, and the Police and Crime Commissioner was there, echoing what you're saying about recognising there was a shortfall in the district, and a lot of through the government police uplift programme. Some of those are just about being appointed now in the first tranche. The second tranche are in training, not too far from the end, and then there's a third tranche that are just about to start training. So should make some significant improvements. But what he did say, he's trying to do a lot with the budget that he didn't set, the previous incumbent set. He's trying to make some changes to that, which he's doing now in this year, but then going into next year, then he can really plan properly. And this is a man who knows his brief. And actually, at that meeting, they said, we've never had a police and crime commissioner visit us before, even though several times we've requested it. So, like I say, echoing what you're saying.
Yeah.
Could you make a short answer, please?
Yeah, I think it's important.
10 minutes is well and truly up.
Yeah, okay. This new commissioner has issued a draft police and crime plan, and what he's saying is he's got certain priorities, and he's saying what he will do to hold the Chief Constable to those priorities and how he will be judged. And I think that's fantastic that somebody is setting out in plain language what he expects and how he will be judged, how successful he's been. And I think we will see a remarkable change in areas of Lancashire, particularly in Wyre, because we have suffered from lack of those resources that we desperately needed.
We've now exceeded 11 minutes. We've well exceeded the 11 minutes. I know we're well and truly over. So that concludes, apologies, but that concludes the consideration of the Neighbourhood Services Community Safety Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to item F, Leisure, Health and Community Engagement. Councillor Bowen, please would you introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report's before you. I would just like to mention a couple of things. The Torrington Primary Care Network have restarted the vaccination programme at Thornton Little Theatre with COVID boosters and flu jabs. These will continue into December. I know that that was what Councillor Longton was bringing up before about the terrible rates we've got in this borough, and I agree, it's frightening. But the commissioned vaccination clinics that we've had going around have vaccinated over 1,500 people to date, which is pretty impressive. And I've been working on getting additional mobile vaccination clinics in the diary and have so far confirmed the following. 2 dates at Cleveley's Community Centre, 11th and 25th of November, 1 o'clock till 7. An additional date for Marine Hall on the 3rd of December, 1 o'clock till 7. We're trying to get more dates in November, particularly at the Marine Hall, although it's pretty busy now. It's booked up for Christmas events, but we're going to keep trying to get some more dates for the borough. The only other thing I want to mention as well is the new media advertising company that we've taken on to advertise the YMCA. They've got a Christmas campaign going on. It's visit Why Choose YMCA. There's lots of information on it about classes, swimming and gyms, and if you can find it on the website, you'll find it really informative. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Councillor Bowen? I think it's Councillor Robinson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's just regarding the men's overwire shed. Obviously, this was started, 4 weeks ago. The first meeting was on the 4th of October. And actually, just been running 4 weeks now. We've actually had up to 10 men that's attended this meeting. And I'd also like to thank Fleetwood Men's Shed, Terry and Tony who came, who's been supporting this. The group have decided to meet every Monday between 10 and 12. So hopefully it's going to be a success. So it was just a comment. Thank you very much, and thank you for the support as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's really important that we have these things going, lots of events for people to keep their minds focused. I know it's been a terrible time for some people, but the one in Fleetwood is absolutely romping away, and hopefully the one in over Wyre will be as well. Thank you.
Councillor Orme.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In respect to 9.1, I would just like to say that I had the privilege of attending the official opening of the Market House last Friday, and whilst perhaps not understanding all that was on show, the concept was long overdue. It's made excellent use of a former unoccupied but historic building in Fleetwood. Having seen similar in other boroughs, I think the Market House will come to be a valued asset to both Fleetwood and Wyre. And all praise to the officers concerned.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, it was quite interesting going to see those paintings actually, because like we said, we don't really understand this, or we don't really understand. And they said the artist said it's a different conception for everybody, a perception for everybody looking at a painting, whatever you think about it. Wrong choice of words there. Thank you.
Councillor Ballard.
I'd just like to ask the portfolio holder if they would like to take my fondest thanks to the Trentham services, which I am a part of. We've doing the COVIDs, and we're even asking for volunteers to come and support to get the COVIDs through. And I believe they're running every Saturday for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah, I'll make sure they get mentioned. Thank you.
That concludes the consideration of the Leisure, Health and Community Engagement Portfolio Holders Report. Now is the opportunity for members of the Cabinet to make comments or ask questions on the reports of their colleagues. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's to Councillor Bridge. Has COVID amongst staff at Copse Road Depot affected the collection of bins? And is it correct that on a day-to-day basis the manager at Copse Road didn't know how many staff would turn in for work on that given day? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that long ago, is it? But when we think back at the very start of the pandemic, we were all so scared because we really knew nothing about it. And every morning we'd be waiting to see who would turn up. And they would turn up unless they got COVID. And they would turn up and they would sit in a cab, inevitably, they were working in close proximity. They would be touching bins of thousands of people. So it wasn't just a case of them wandering around out on the streets. They were doing all of that. We didn't know from day to day how many people would turn in. Some days were harder than others, or weeks I should say. We'd get extra staff in. We'd get agency staff. They came out the offices to work for us as well. They did everything. We prioritised, so obviously the priority was the grey bin, because that's the one that needed to go. But we didn't overpromise. When we couldn't collect the blue bin, because the blue bin was the least nasty stuff to go. And, you know, if it sat in your driveway for another week, we didn't say we'll be around tomorrow, although in actual fact, we worked weekends, we did everything. These people were amazing. Now, this is no laughing matter. They couldn't hide in an office like many of us could do and behind a glass screen. They were like the cabbies and the bus drivers and the nurses. They were out there. They were in front of it all. It took a massive toll on them. They're one of the biggest death rates is in that job. I don't find it funny. I don't find it laughing. I'm in awe of these people. They turned out. They did it. Their managers, I couldn't believe it. I mean, constantly in touch, how they were rejigging it, how they were working around. The guys actually on the vans were saying, well, do you know what, we could do this, we could do that, we could get around here, we could whatever, just to increase the round, just to be able to do it. These people were incredible. And so all I can say is it did affect, we all know that, because we all had residents who would ring up and say, my blue bin's not gone. But we got through it, and we only got through it because these people were fantastic. And the management was inspirational. All I can say is thank you to them. They were superb.
Councillor Michael Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a question for Councillor Berry, if I may. He may recall, I think Councillor Beaver said it was 2013 when we stopped paying for our own police presence in Wyre, when other boroughs in the county didn't have to pay for their own police presence. For the last 8 years, this has gone unmentioned by the Labour group, and all of a sudden it's changed. 11.4% of the Wyre council tax money goes to the police, 10.6% of it comes to this council, and yet apparently we're meant to pay for our own police. Whether the Police and Crime Commissioner is Conservative or Labour, this council will not fund services that are should be within the budgets of others. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, the Councillor Vincent is absolutely correct. And in fact, I think there may be just one council that actually funds PCSOs, because councils just find that they just cannot afford to it, and they realise that the Police and Crime Commissioner is getting substantial funds from our ratepayers, and I'm grateful that we are getting increased numbers of PCSOs coming through. When I spoke to the inspector this afternoon, because he rang me to say he wanted to reassure councillors that the police were doing everything they could to protect residents in Wyre, and he mentioned that they were going to get 3 PCSOs coming in. He was very grateful that these extra forces were coming in. So those numbers are now increasing because of the fact that both myself and other members of the executive have made sort of observations to the Police and Crime Commissioner, to police officers, that we needed more officers and support in this borough, and those requests are now being repaid, and I'm very grateful that they have listened to us, and I'm hopeful that we will get increased forces further in the future. But Councillor Vincent is absolutely correct. The Police and Crime Commissioner has had substantial funding over the period of time, and he has spent massive amounts of money on buildings. I mentioned this meeting after meeting, the fact that the Police and Crime Commissioner had funds to renovate buildings and to lay £26 million out down in Blackpool on a new divisional headquarters. So the money was there, but they were not put into resources which I consider to be the most essential, i.e. police officers and PCSOs.
That concludes the consideration of executive reports. We will now move on to agenda item 8, mid-year Treasury Management Report. Councillor Michael Vincent, would you like to introduce your report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report's before members. I'm happy to propose it and answer any questions.
Happy to second that, Madam Mayor.
I'm going to have to ask the question. Are there any comments, questions or amendments? No. So can we go straight for the vote, please? Would members now please vote on those in favour, please show. That has been carried, thank you very much. The next item is item 9, localised council tax support. Councillor Michael Vincent, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members will have seen from the report that there's no change proposed because it's the right thing to do. Happy to propose the report, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
Second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments, questions or amendments? So we will now go to the vote. All those in favour, thank you. That unanimous. The recommendations have been approved. Item 10, public sector audit appointments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. The recommendation at 3.1 that approval is given to opt into the PSAA arrangements for appointment of external auditors from 2023-2024. I have nothing to add to the report.
Is there a seconder? Straight to the vote. So those in favour, please show. Unanimous. The next item is calendar of meetings, item 11 for 22-23. Councillor Henderson, will you please introduce the report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The calendar and report is before members. It literally follows on with just one or two tweaks from last year. The recommendation is 3.1 and I propose that it be noted. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder for that? Any comments, questions or amendments? I'm waiting for him to put his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Wyre Labour Group will support the report, but I will say that more should be done to avoid committee meetings clashing with town and parish councils. To help councillors from all groups, the Wyre Labour Group will be putting forward an amendment to the Constitution which will address the issues of these clashes, but it's just for information that we'll support it, but we do think there's a problem with the clashes of several meetings. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson is the proposer of the recommendation. Would you please respond to the debate?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The only comment that I shall make is that Wyre Council, of course, in this area is the main district council. Would I suggest that other parishes or town councils maybe look at our calendar and shift their meetings? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That concludes the debate. We will now move over to the vote. Everybody in favour? That is unanimous. Just dread that word. I'm at 2-0. I've lost the plot.
Let's have a button with it on.
I wrote now. Shut up. Item 12, Constitution Amendments. Councillor Henderson, will you please introduce the report and propose the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Constitution, of course, is a document that's visited quite regularly and it needs updating. Officers' responsibilities change, so therefore wording needs to be changed. And as the year goes on, we do realise that there may be better ways of doing things that we've done in the past, and that is reflected in the amendments. So therefore I move the recommendations at 3.1 and 3.2.
Second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. What does he do if he resists? Is there any comments, questions or recommendations or amendments on the amendment? Councillor Fell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At 5.1.6 of the report, the changes to paragraph 19.2 of the Constitution don't mention the proposing and seconding of amendments to draft minutes. When we have full councils, there is little or no problem. But I do think that the Constitution would benefit from some specific rules should the need for half councils arise again, with those rules being considerate to the impact on the smaller groups. As I indicated during the last item, the Wyre Labour Group would like to put forward an amendment to the constitutional amendments, which was distributed to members this morning. This is a very simple amendment to allow substitution of committee members where members are absent, whether it's because they're unwell or working or for other reasons. Providing members receive the necessary training, it resolves issues with clashes between committee meetings and parish and town council meetings. It doesn't change the political balance on the committees, but it does have the potential to improve the work of these committees. If you could please support the amendment that you've all seen. I can read it out if you wish, but members should have seen it.
Mr Payne, the proposed amendment, is it accepted as an amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, having read the wording, it doesn't negate the intention of the original wording as on page 96, so it is an acceptable amendment. So you can now ask if there is a seconder. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Have we got a seconder for that, Councillor?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to second it and I've got to reserve the right to speak.
So now we can have a debate on the amendment. Would anybody like to speak on that? Councillor Vincent, Michael Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For once, I don't really have an issue with what he's proposing here. I don't think it's unreasonable, but I am against it. I mean, Councillor Fale does refer to the procedural standing orders from Lancashire County Council, but that certainly refers to vacancies. Well, this isn't about vacancies. If it was a case of a vacancy, he already has the power to appoint somebody to replace a vacant position on any of the committees. So that it doesn't. The powers that he's referring to, they're not the same. Essentially, Madam Mayor, the purpose of the proposed amendment is to ensure that where there is a good reason for members not to attend meetings for a prolonged period, that the proposal is that a substitute be put forward to have a situation where a member who couldn't attend for a significant period of time wouldn't feel the need that they had to try and come, that they were letting anybody down, etc., and that balance could be restored. In terms of members being unwell and missing the odd meeting, people miss the odd meeting. I miss the odd meeting of cabinet and things. People have holidays. People have a right to holidays, etc. So it's not really necessary to have a substitute at every meeting. It's only to cover prolonged absence. Now, Councillor Fale alluded in his comments on the last item to the fact that really what they want to do is have a provision where they can just chop and change for who they want on the committees. But that's not how it works. That's not how we do it. The leaders of each group have the right to put whoever they want in any of their positions. If overview and scrutiny or audit clash with Fleetwood Town Council, don't put your Fleetwood Town councillors on those committees, or they should be prioritising Wyre anyway. So I understand what he's getting at, but I don't agree with it, and I would ask that members support me in voting against it.
Councillor Henderson.
No. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Michael Vincent's more or less said it, to be perfectly honest. This has been a bit of a bee in my bonnet just lately about non-attendance at meetings, but not only non-attendance at meetings, but also not attending a meeting and not even bothering to send in an apology, which is not at all in the spirit in which we were all first elected. All members should attend meetings in the manner at which they were first elected. You all know, everybody knows what you're expected to do. Your associations tell you before you're even put down on the list what you're expected to do. The people out there that elect you, they expect you to turn up correctly at meetings as well. And trying to use a substitute because somebody's going to another meeting or whatever is certainly not in the spirit of being a councillor. And the original amendment to the Constitution here states that it is exceptional circumstances only. And it's not to be used when it suits members not to attend certain meetings. And I say this to the Conservative group as well as colleagues over here, that you are elected to serve Wyre Council. That is your first and foremost responsibility. And if it clashes because you're a member of a parish council or a town council, or you've got another meeting that is not seriously more important than the committee to which you've been appointed, you turn up here. That is my thoughts on it. I'm not going to change. I might be too old. I might be dyed in the wool. But you're elected to do a job. Everybody's elected to do a job. Pitch up here and do it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Beavers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I say that you absolutely look lovely tonight, and can I borrow that hat? Well, I thought we was all going swimmingly, but obviously things changed on the top table. So I'd like to explain where we're coming from and our idea of what we thought we were proposing, and not what Councillor Vincent has decided that we was proposing, or Councillor Henderson. So I just want to explain how it works at County Hall and why I believe we can and should all benefit from this change. Just looking around this chamber, the days of the local councillors being retired are long gone. The majority of the people elected have a job and a family, as well as having other personal demands on them. Many are dual hatters or even triple hatters. And lots of us are on local committees and charities within our local areas. We all are here because we care about our communities and try the best to fulfil all of our commitments. Unfortunately, some of our meetings may overlap. For lots of different reasons, we may not be able to attend every committee meeting we are elected to onto by our groups. This could be because of our health, work, childcare, caring responsibilities, or by simply needing to be in two places at one time. The substitute method works for me and many others at County Hall. If we are unable to attend a meeting for whatever reason, we contact the whip, secretary, leader or deputy, and they ask our group for volunteer substitutes for that committee. They then submit the temporary substitution to Democratic Services team. The fly in the ointment, and there's always one, so to speak, is that all councillors must have undertaken training on committees such as planning and audit before being able to substitute on them. I believe this is because of the legalities of these committees. But to be a substitute on any other committee, no training is required. At Lancashire, training is offered on all subjects to all councillors. So when subbing, we have a better understanding of the process. The benefit to being able to sub on all committees is that we all have a better understanding of the workings of the council. It also gives us the flexibility to continue to represent our constituents in the best way possible without letting our team down. It works really well for me at County, and I believe it would benefit every single person in this chamber. I ask that you support this amendment. Thank you.
Would the proposer of the amendment please respond to the debate? Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Vincent, a bit like his misunderstanding with Labour's stance on PCSOs, he's also misunderstood what LCC do, as explained by Councillor Vincent. Their procedures don't match actually what they do, so the written procedures don't actually match their actual procedures. LCC do have the ability to switch members. This proposal for substitutes merely aligns with LCC. It improves things for members, it improves things for the groups, it improves things for the committees, and it improves things for this council. Please support this amendment. Thank you.
We will now move to a vote on the amendment. Those in favour, please show. Against? Don't forget Councillor George at the back. Any abstentions? Have you got 2, is it? The amendment is lost. We will now move back to the original motion. Does anybody wish to speak on that? Councillor Michael Vincent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wish to propose an amendment. From our discussions prior to this being brought forward, I think a very late proposal was made, and the version of the amended constitution to include this hasn't been brought forward. At paragraph 2, ordinary meetings, subsection 2, it states at the moment, confirm the minutes of the last meeting. Any debates on the minutes must be limited to matters of fact, not interpretation. The words should be inserted to the effect of only members present at the meeting may take part in the vote. Just to tidy it up to represent what we already do, as LCC need to do seemingly.
Mr. Payne, is that acceptable?
Yeah, that's an acceptable amendment, Madam Mayor. Doesn't negate the intent of the original wording, just clarifies it. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Henderson. We can now have a debate on the amendment if councillors wish. Does anybody want to make a comment? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would comment that we move to the vote.
Hallelujah. Those in favour, please show. Oh, of the amendment. We're now going to vote on the amendment that Councillor Vincent proposed. Against? Any abstentions? 5. The amendment is carried. Now we go back to the original report with the recommendation and the amendment added. Yes? Does anybody want to speak on that? No? So we'll move to the vote. Those for? Any against? Abstentions? 4, 35 against 4. So it has been carried, and we'll now move on to the next item. 36 for. Against 4. 36 for. 4 abstentions. We'll now move on. That has been carried. Thank you. We're now on item 13, Independent Remuneration Panel Membership. Councillor Henderson, please introduce the report and propose the recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. The recommendation at 3.1, I would just like to say that I'd like to thank Professor Ansell to allow his name to be put forward because we do need the independent people looking inward to us to make sure that we're doing the correct job. It's not just about the remuneration, it's actually what we do for that remuneration. So therefore, the recommendation at 3.1, I propose, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder for the proposal? Are there any comments, questions or amendments? That concludes. Pardon? We can go straight for the vote now, please. So 4. That is unanimous. We'll now move on to item 14, Periodic Report Licensing Committee. Councillor Robinson, would you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Licensing Committee periodic report is before members, but I'd just like to thank officers and committee members for the continued support and input at these meetings. It has been a difficult time over these last 18 months, and the Licensing Committee was the first to go virtual. As you can see in the report, it has been a business as normal, with a total of 20 separate matters being considered by the committee. So, as a chairman of this committee, I would like to thank officers and the committee members. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Are there any comments, questions for Councillor Robinson? She will have a chance to respond when all comments have been made and questions have been asked. None. So that has been noted. Thank you. The next item is item 15, Periodic Report. Armed Forces Champion, Councillor Peter Marinell. Would you please introduce your report? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Reports before members. Happy to take any questions. I'd just like to put on record thanks to officers and Paul Deacon especially for the help. Thank you.
Are there any comments, questions for Councillor Marinell? He will have a chance to respond when all questions and comments have been made. Are there any? No? So the report...
Late one.
Just a slip of the...
Late one there. I'd actually just like to say thank you to Councillor Marinell for the excellent job that he's doing, Madam Mayor, as you full well know. I do. I know you do, and it's not an easy job, so thank you.
I have also heard you were doing an excellent job, so well done. The report is noted. No, I said it very nicely. Item 16, notices of motion. However, there are none. So that concludes the business for this evening and the meeting is closed. Thank you for attending. And can I say thank you for whoever has put into my envelope, which will go to my charity, which is Doherty's Destiny, making sure that we put a trained counsellor for 6 weeks, 1 day a week in a high school to support our children before they actually have to go further and wait for a 40-week referral. So it's so important. So any event I'm having, please think of all the children that we've had, that our children might be having, that might suddenly come where they need this urgent support. This is really important, so I do hope you'll attend as many events, and if not, make a donation or give me a raffle prize. And I'd like to just say thank you to Emma, who put all my gold on my cape. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Councillors, ladies and gentlemen,